That's right. You're listening to another episode of the Co-Main Event Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I'm Chad Dundas. That's Ben Folks. We're both longtime MMA journalists, and for nearly the last 13 years, we've been meeting here every week to break down all the action in the wild, weird, and occasionally wonderful world of mixed martial arts. Ben, we got UFC 315 this weekend from the Bell Center up there in Montreal, coming to us right on the heels of our trip out to Des Moines, where Cory Sandhagen defeated Davison Figueredo in the main event due to a second round knee injury. And the fight that is perhaps engendering more public interest, Rainier de Ridder's victory over Bo Nickal in the middleweight co-main event, a second round TKO there. As maybe is to be expected, most of the listener mail that we got this week, most of the listener input was about the de Ridder Nickal fight. And so I think we'll talk about that coming up in the middle of the show when we get to listener mail. We'll sprinkle in a little Sandhagen versus Figueredo after that if we have time. I don't know. Sandhagen Figueredo was a little bit nondescript to my mind. Cory Sandhagen looked great. Davison Figueredo didn't have much for him. Didn't necessarily look healthy, I don't think, through the whole thing. Ended up getting the injury in the second round. There's some stuff to talk about there for sure. But I think here at the beginning of the show, we're going to focus most of our attention on UFC 315, Bilal Muhammad's first title defense against flat-nosed Jackie Della Maddalena. So we will talk about that. First, though, still very exciting. We are well into Pledge Month here at the Co-Main Event Podcast. It is the time of year when we turn to you, the loyal listeners of the Co-Main Event, and tell you, you know what? We got needs. We got critical needs here at the Co-Main Event that we can only cover through the support of you, our splendid listening audience. We don't have the support of a big MMA website. We're not part of a larger conglomerate. The man does not have his thumb on the scales over here at the Co-Main Event. We're just two guys talking into microphones. We've been doing it for over a dozen years. We've both grown old. We started as young men. Here we are, middle-aged and decrepit. We're CM Punk up there on that pro wrestling stage saying, I'm old, I'm hurt, I'm broken, and I work with children. And we need, so now and again, we turn to the listening audience, man. We need a little support. We need help keep the CME going. And that is why we have Pledge Month this month.
Yeah. A lot of people say things like, we couldn't do it without you. We mean it.
Yeah.
We literally couldn't do it without you, because we're not over here, selling our souls to the corporate fat cats. We've had various entreaties over the years, various corporate powers that be wanted to come over here, plunk some money down, get their hooks into the CME. And we said no at every turn. You know why? Because they would fetter the discourse. Inevitably, they would have fettered the discourse. And we ain't having that. We must continue to have the unfettered discourse that you enjoy here every week. And also, we must continue to have the best community of MMA fans anywhere out there on Al Gore's internet. You can see him every week on the CME Patreon. That's patreon.com/co-main event. You can also find them in our Discord, where every single patron of the CME gets instant access to. And they're talking all kinds of stuff over there, Chad. They don't limit themselves to just fights. There's an active fight night discourse every time there's an event, but they're talking all kinds of stuff. People are out there talking about sumo wrestling, board games, movies, books, life advice, all kinds of stuff. It's just a great community of great people. Come on in from the cold. Join the team. You can get in for as little as $1 a month, although $3 a month, although most of our patrons opt for the $5 a month, which $5 a month, Chad, it's like $1.25 a week. It's barely even money. You won't even miss it. If I went into your wallet while you slept, Chad, as I have often considered doing, and I creaked open your old man leather ass wallet, the one you got at Sears when you were 12 years old and still carry around in your back pocket where it's worn outline in your jeans and your Wranglers. I pried it open. I took $1.25 every week out of your wallet. You'd never know. And in exchange, you'd get down with the best community in MMA.
See, I was halfway kidding about us being old, and then you made an Al Gore joke, which kind of proved my point there. Okay, here's what is going on. Right now, we are giving you the opportunity to join the best little community in MMA at half price. That's right. Right now, for Pledge Month through June 1st, if you are not currently a member of the CME's Patreon, you can get 50% off on a new yearly or annual membership at our Patreon page. 50% off. That's a lot. That means you could sign up for a whole year and still only pay half price. You'll be well into 2026 before you are bothered to pay again. Just use the coupon code CME13. That's the letters CME13 when you sign up at patreon.com/co-main event. We would love to have you, and your support and generosity. It keeps the CME going, and Lord willing and the creek don't rise, maybe we'll be here another 13 years. This month, you can also get 25% off your order at the CME merchandise shop using the same code. Use CME13 over there, get 25% off on t-shirts, hats, hoodies, lots more. Stop by, pick up the best-selling Daddest Man on the planet coffee mug for 25% off. We sold 2 of them today. You know where they're going?
Where are they going?
Norway.
Hell yeah.
We sold some coffee mugs today, sending them out to Norway. Get on there, save yourself 25% with CME13. As always, we partner with our guy, Johnny Ashcroft, on the shop. He is a designer from Portland, Oregon. We can't recommend him highly enough for all your design needs. Hit him up at studiosuperconductor.com or on Instagram at Studio Superconductor. Ben, UFC 315.
Yeah.
Bilal Muhammad, he going to go out here and defend the title against Jack Della Maddalena. Bilal Muhammad, one of these guys, riding an insane unbeaten streak. The last time he lost was January of 2019, a unanimous decision to Jeff Neal, of all people. Since then, not a loss to be found on the record. The only fight that wasn't a win was that no contest against Leon Edwards back in 2021. Bilal got poked in the eye. Fight wasn't able to continue. No contest. He came back 3 years later, defeated Leon to win the welterweight championship. And now here we are staring down the barrel of a Jack Della Maddalena title defense. Jack Della Maddalena can't say he doesn't deserve it. He's another guy who hasn't lost in a damn long time. He hasn't lost since 2016. Undefeated in the UFC, undefeated after losing his first 2 fights as a professional. He rolls in here on the heels of a 3rd round KO over Gilbert Burns. Not the fight maybe we expected. Thought maybe we were going to get that boy good, Shavkat Rakhmonov, up here in this fight against Bilal Muhammad. What are your thoughts here? What are your thoughts about this fight? I've got my own, but I want to hear yours first.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that no contest to Leon Edwards that Bilal Muhammad had, because remember what we were saying coming out of that one? We were all like, hey, you got poked in the eye. We all saw it. It was a bad one. No one disputes that. But we all saw where that was headed, didn't we? That's what we were saying. We were like, Leon Edwards looked like he was too big, controlling the range too well, was sort of tenderizing Bilal Muhammad with those kicks, and just seemed like Bilal was going to have nothing for him, and that was only going to get worse as the rounds went on. And so that's why we kind of felt okay moving on from that one. Didn't seem like we needed to turn right around and book the rematch on that. And then Bilal Muhammad shows up, underrated and underappreciated as he has been for most of his stay in the UFC, and really took it to Leon Edwards and took that title off of him. I talked to Bilal last week, and I was kind of asking him about where he feels like he is with the fans right now, because we've seen this before, especially when a new guy becomes champ, and if the fans didn't already have it in their minds, like this guy is going to be champ as soon as they give him a crack at the belt, it kind of takes them sometimes a little bit to win people over. And that's kind of where it seems like Bilal Muhammad is. Like he's been the champ for a little while just because we've had trouble getting one on the books. He was supposed to fight Shavkat. We had the toe, the badly infected toe injury, all that kind of stuff. So I think that people have had time to get used to the idea of Bilal Muhammad as champion, but it still seems like the MMA community has not totally bought in, don't you think?
Yeah, like you said, it seems like there are always a lot of buts along with Bilal Muhammad. Every conversation about Bilal Muhammad has one of those in it because he's one of these guys where we are continually, perennially saying he's good, but he'll probably lose the next one. He's good, but he's not the most exciting guy.
Yeah.
He's good, but he doesn't seem like the UFC's favorite. He doesn't seem like a fan favorite. Bilal is one of these guys who's going to have to keep doing it on his own if he's going to keep doing it. This fight against Jack Della Maddalena is interesting because this is one of the first fights to come along where we haven't had those butts attached, right? We think Bilal should win this one. This is not Shavkat Rakhmonov out there. Bilal Muhammad comes into this fight as the favorite. We're looking at this one as, hey, he beats Flat-Nosed Jackie, then maybe we move on. Then maybe we get Shavkat. Maybe then we get the title defense we want to see. And I think that makes this an important fight for Bilal, frankly. Every fight that he's had has felt important because of the extreme need that he has had to keep winning and winning and winning. Obviously, like we say on this show, it's better to win the fights than lose. But for Bilal Muhammad, it felt like people were just waiting for an opportunity to put him back in the back seat where he wasn't going to be a championship material. He wasn't going to get a title shot, all that stuff. Now he's a champion. Now he's got to win this one. I don't know how much respect people will give him even coming off of this fight against Jack Della Maddalena, since this is one he's supposed to win. But also he better win it, because if he loses this belt, we're going to be right back to saying all the stuff we said about Bilal Muhammad before. Flash in the pan, cup of coffee with the title, lost to a big underdog. And he's going to have to run off another string of wins, I think, before he gets back in this position again.
Yeah, I mean, at this point where Bilal Muhammad is sitting around as a 36-year-old UFC welterweight champion, if he loses it, he should not plan to ever get back there. Because you're right, the UFC does not seem like they exactly love him as champion. It didn't seem like that was the dream scenario for anybody over there. I think that as far as having a little bit of swagger, he has come into his own in the last 2 years, even before he was champion. That, when I talk to him, you know how it is before these fights where you're just like, you got 10 minutes with the guy on one of these UFC interviews that they set up. You're trying to get something out of him that's different from everybody else's. You don't just want to sit there. How was your training camp? Do you think you are going to win this fight or lose it? There's only so much he's going to say there. And I was surprised a little bit at this. The last few times I've talked to him before some of these fights, you can see Bilal Muhammad is not afraid to go out there and be like, look, I don't care if you guys think I'm good. I am good. And I'm keep winning these damn fights. And so either you're going to get with it or you're not. The same way when I asked him about the whole weird picture at welterweight right now, where it seems like Islam Makhachev, a friend and sometimes training partner of his, by all accounts, is sitting around waiting to hear what's going to happen. Is Bilal going to retain the title? And he was saying, hey, I told him, go ahead and book your next lightweight title defense because I'm not losing this. And, that kind of stuff, it feels like he's doing his part to be a little more marketable in those ways. So maybe the UFC will come around if he wins more of these fights. I did go and look because I was like, when is the last time Bilal Muhammad coming into a fight both opened and closed as the favorite, as he seems like he's going to do here? Like this one, looking at best fight odds, this one against Flat-Nosed Jackie, he opened at -230. The line as of now has narrowed to -190. So he's still a considerable favorite in that one. And the last time he opened as a favorite was against Sean Brady, but then he closed as a slight underdog in that one. The people liked the underdog line on Sean Brady, and so that flipped. The last time that he was an underdog and stayed that way, the favorite and stayed that way all the way through, was when he fought Demian Maia back in 2021. So, against Stephen Thompson and some of these other guys, like he's showing up and people are thinking like, okay, but this one he's probably going to lose, right? And then he just keeps reeling off those wins. And frankly, it was the only way he was going to get a title shot, was to sort of become inevitable. So yeah, don't lose and think you're going to they like you so much they're going to put you right back in there, because that shit probably is not going to happen. But if you're Bilal, you got to feel like we talked about this, I think, with some other guys, where when you have such a long run to get to the title, you wonder, did he use up all his good stuff getting there? How long can he stay there when he does win it? Because, you went through the ringer just to get there. I think that he has been a little smarter about training and not sparring too hard, not leaving his best stuff in the gym, all that kind of thing. And yet, you also, if I were trying to craft a career for him where we could maximize this UFC welterweight title when we have it, I would say he ended up in a pretty good spot, because I feel like style-wise, this is a more winnable fight for him than Shavkat would have been. This is a chance to get a title defense under your belt while you're getting points on the pay-per-view, stack some of that paper, and maybe even build to something bigger later on when I assume Shavkat does come back around.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned him maybe training smarter. I mean, Bilal Muhammad is clearly a smart guy. You also mentioned him showing a little bit of the personality. I feel like he has always been fairly social media savvy. I feel like he has always been somewhat, approachable, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
he's out there. He feels like he is in the fandom in a way that a lot of the guys do, because it does feel like when people are out there on Instagram or Twitter or whatever talking MMA, he feels like somebody who is in the conversation rather than totally outside of it, the way a lot of other UFC fighters feel.
Not that I want to sidetrack this conversation, but is the elephant in the room the fact that Bilal Muhammad is an outspoken Muslim, an outspoken supporter of Palestine, a critic of U.S. policy in that region? Because I don't know, man, you couple that with the fighting style that's not super exciting, and you could see how maybe there are some UFC brass that wouldn't be that stoked about that. On the other hand, you've had Muslim champions before. You got one now. You got Islam Makhachev. You had Khabib Nurmagomedov. But one of the things,
it's not the Muslim thing that they object to, to the extent that they object to it, because you're right. Like, they liked having Muslim champions that would help them when we take events to the Middle East and help ticket sales there, help interest there. It's the outspoken Palestinian support. But to their credit, in a way, they have come around a little bit. Like, he had to kind of drag them there. Yeah. But remember, like, for a while where he was like the only guy who didn't have the flag he wanted next to his name. It was they just had it blank. And he was like, give me the Palestinian flag. And finally they did. They changed it on the website. It shouldn't have taken that long. It shouldn't have been an issue to begin with. But also he was saying, he told him, like, hey, I'm walking out with the Palestinian flag when I walk out there in the Bell Center to defend this title, or else I'm not walking out. And he has said, at least, that they said, okay, they'll let him do it. So it's like they did come around on that. Again, should not have been an issue at all. He should have been able to just say, like, this is who I represent, and this is give me my shit the way you give everybody else their shit. Dana White was the one who said the flags are coming back, doesn't care if it hurts your feelings, even though he was the one who took the flags away in the first place. So it should not have been an issue. And honestly, thank God there's somebody still speaking up for the Palestinians who are living in a situation where it's about as bad as it could possibly be over there. So I think it's great that Bilal Muhammad, that he cares enough about it, that he knows might not be popular with everybody in the UFC or TKO Group Holdings LLC brass, but he cares enough about it, and that he's not going to be silenced on it. And I appreciate that. And I think that is one way to help us, like, support you or get to know you or form opinions about you, is for you to take a stand on some shit that actually matters to you.
No, I agree. I find him an engaging, smart, likable guy. It just strikes me when I talk about it that the UFC has had Muslim champions before that it wanted to promote, and it did in fact take them to Abu Dhabi. It did in fact take them to Saudi Arabia. We do a lot of shows over there these days. Khabib's last 2 fights were in Abu Dhabi. Take them to a place where they can be marketable. And Where are we taking Bilal? Montreal. Not that he won't be marketable there, but it's probably a scheduling thing more than
It is,
anything
I
with the
think.
UFC. But at the same time, we're just not seeing him get the same treatment that some of these other guys have gotten.
That's true. I think that it is mostly them looking at it and being like, hey, a Bilal pay-per-view is going to do what it's going to do. It's going to do sort of baseline UFC pay-per-view numbers, depending on what kind of supporting cast we give it to help prop it up. And it's not like, hey, it would be a blockbuster event in this part of the world and not in this part. That they probably feel like it'd be about the same. Like, the people who are going to get excited about that the UFC is coming to Montreal are going to get excited about it. And, a title fight on the top tells you it's a pay-per-view. I think that's kind of am I the only one also when you were mentioning the Bell Center in Montreal, I was like, I feel like the Bell Center is another one. Like, is the Bell Center Canada's T-Mobile? Because I feel like they've got more than one. Or did they used to have one in Winnipeg and they renamed it something else?
You got me there.
The Canadian listeners, they know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they'll let us know how many Bell Centers that there are up there in Canada. You mentioned this pay-per-view. There are a lot of other fights on this card that seem like fights that are definitely happening. Right, Valentina Shevchenko going to defend the women's flyweight title against Manon Fiorot. You got Alexa Grasso also on the card taking on Natalia Silva. Jose Aldo is going to fight 37-year-old Ayman Zahabi, who comes into this fight with a 5-fight win streak.
Montreal guy.
Yeah.
Faraz Zahabi's little brother.
He is almost a 2-1 underdog against Jose Aldo. What else is on the main card here? Benoit Saint Denis against Kyle Pripolek, and that'll do it. That's your 5-fight main card. Not exactly star-studded, although, some fights of, shall we say, local interest.
Okay, I'll say I am still interested to see, what will become of Benoit Saint Denis, who, late 20s. He had on a tear before he got knocked out by Dustin Poirier, and then ends up getting beat by Renato Moicano. And we kind of went, oh, wow, he went from maybe heir apparent to kind of an afterthought in the division real quick. But we're throwing him on the Montreal card. Are we kind of just being like, they might think he's one of theirs? Benoit Saint Denis, he sounds like he could be from around the way, and instead is from France. But then going up against a guy from, I believe, Windsor, Ontario, and Kyle Pripolek. But you also, you got a few more of these down, Marc-Andre Barrios. We got some of those guys where you think like, all right, we didn't exactly like throw our backs out trying to load up this fight card or anything. We kind of relied on, hey, they still love us in Canada. Canada still has a ton of fight fans. We don't have George St. Pierre anymore, but we also don't go there that often, so that when we do go there, they'll get excited about it. People will turn out, even though we're getting deep into the hockey playoffs now when the hearts of Canadians turn to other things. That seems like kind of what we're counting on here. We put some gold on the poster, put 2 title fights up there. You'll figure it's good enough.
I think the people want to hear us talk about Renier de Ridder and Bo Nickal, judging from the listener mail that we got this week. So right now, like we always do about this time, let's do a little bit of listener mail.
Listener mail.
All right, we got several bits of listener mail about Bo Nickal. I guess I will start with this one from Akbar Dickelgazy. Wait, is that a reference? I don't know if that's a reference.
Is it something where you're supposed to say it real fast and it'll sound like you're saying something dirty?
I don't know. Could be. Should have made it easier to pronounce if that was the case, because I stumbled over it. Anyway, they write, I'm sure there will be discourse on the actual fight, but did the placement of Bo's fight seem odd? He goes from the main event of UFC 300 from the main card of UFC 300 to another main card fight at UFC 309 to the co-main at a fight night in Des Moines. and against a legit guy not well known outside of the hardcore fan base who follow ONE FC. Do you think the UFC soured on him after the Craig fight? This half man, half reindeer guy is going to be a big problem for other guys in the division, in my opinion. We talked a little bit during the Power Hour at the Patreon page on Friday about how this felt like the right placement for this Bo Nickal fight, the co-main event of a fight night, but not a fight night at the Apex, a fight night where we're out on the road, which sends the message that this is slightly more important than us just having it at the Apex. A good test, I think, what was supposed to be a good test against Rainier de Ridder. I didn't have too much of a problem with the placement or the matchmaking, although it did seem like this was that point that the UFC gets to with a lot of its prospects, where it was like, we've been bringing this guy along, and now it's time to see what he's actually got. Time to kind of throw him in the deep end here. But let's not forget, Bo Nickal was a pretty sizable favorite in this fight, so he was viewed as the guy who was likely going to win. It just didn't go that way. But that said, I didn't have a problem with the matchup or the placement. I thought it felt right.
Yeah, I think that what Akbar is getting at here is that the other ones felt wrong. Like that's what I think you can say is that, hey, why did this guy, like UFC 300, right? That was the biggie. And he was on the main card. That thing was loaded with like champions and ex-champions and all super well-known veteran people who have really earned a place in this sport. And then he was the curtain jerker on the main card against Cody Brundage, who you look at everybody else on that fight card, there's no way Cody Brundage ends up there unless it was to help out the Bo Nickal business. And so I think that you could look at that one and be like, he was out of place there. I think you could probably also say the same thing where, we had the UFC 309 card as the big, fall in New York City at Madison Square Garden event. And you could look at that and be like, little interesting for him to be there too. Like that was the John Jones Stipe card. That was Charles Oliveira and Mikey Chandler. And then you had Bo Nickal and Paul Craig in kind of a stinker. And so that, like, I don't think it's that this is a real like downgrade necessarily. It's that this is a sort of a return to normalcy, a return to sanity. This is kind of where a guy like him should be at this point in his career, especially, we're going to go out there to Des Moines. They appreciate a wrestler. They know what to make of a guy who, has a bunch of pictures of him as a child wearing nylon singlets. So they can relate to that. You put him in there. The matchup, it is a little interesting because we talked about this where you accused me of doing the thing where just because I interviewed a guy, I thought he was going to win. I picked Rainier de Ridder in our $20 you never want to see again betting challenge, and might have been the only good thing I did with my money last week. And he said it when I talked to him. He was like, I was surprised that they were giving me Bo Nickal because I felt like the UFC was clearly trying to craft an easier path for him, and we're bringing him along a lot more gradually. And I feel like my experience and skill set is going to be tough for him. And lo and behold, he was exactly right about that.
Yep.
And I don't think it was that. It's not like Bo Nickal looked like trash or anything.
Don't get ahead of yourself here, because we got this question from Jake Jarmel.
Okay.
That says, so RDR showed Bo Nickal the fight game is a lot tougher when you're not being fed ham and eggers on the undercard discourse. I mean, ouch for the other guys, I guess, but not wrong. We're not wrong.
Well, yeah, and it is a big difference to go from some of these other people. I mean, Paul Craig seemed like they were nudging him up a little bit with that matchup because it was, a big guy for the division, guy with some good submission stuff, but also a guy who's kind of limited. And you put him in there with Rainier de Ridder, and you got a guy who literally had 3 times the fight experience, has been in big fights before, granted in other organizations, but and also a big guy for the division. And I think you got in there and you just saw some of that inexperience. You also saw some of that body language that you'd see from Bo Nickal later in this fight, where it was just sort of like, oh, I'm not used to this.
Yeah.
I'm not used to it being tough like this. Usually I'm the one in control of the dance one way or another. he had not, that we had seen, faced too many fights where it seemed like the other guy was doing stuff to him that he didn't like and couldn't stop. And that's what you were seeing in that second round, where DeRitter is hammering him to the body a lot, and you could just see where he got that look on his face like, I don't really want to be here anymore. I wish this guy would stop it, and he's not going to. And he didn't really have an answer for that.
I know that, excuse me, I know that we made a big deal leading up to the fight about Bo Nickal starting his weight cut at 220 something, 220, whatever it was. And Rainier DeRitter is a big man at 185. And maybe that affected my view, but I thought Bo Nickal looked like he was in the wrong weight class out there. Just looked like he couldn't do the stuff that he wanted to do to DeRitter, not only because DeRitter is skilled in the all-around game, but the guy's just too big for him, man. Just like very easily poking him in the gut with his knee over and over and over again. I don't know that Bo Nickal won too many seconds of this fight, right? He had one takedown that DeRitter reversed pretty quickly, got himself into a scramble. Other than that, I don't know, man. Bo Nickal kind of got run over in this one. And I don't necessarily even know that it was his fault matchmaking wise, but at the same time, he didn't look like he should be out there kind of in any way.
Right. But also, like, let's keep it in perspective. It was his 8th pro fight. He had 2 amateur fights before that. So, if you think about it that way, like 10th total time being there in an MMA fight. And most of those other fights did not last long at all.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the last couple fights that he even went out of the first round. He went the second round against Cody Brundage at UFC 300, went the distance, all 3 rounds with Paul Craig. But prior to that, you're looking at a bunch of fights where it's like 33 seconds, minute 2 seconds, 52 seconds, 38 seconds. Like, that's just not a ton of cage time. I mean, going through the fight week, doing all that stuff, like that helps you get used to that part of the process. But he just hadn't been in too many of those situations in a fight. And so I think that, how MMA fans are going to be about some shit like this, right? Like where they're jumping off the bandwagon, especially when somebody is clearly the promoter's pick, when somebody like clearly the UFC wants Bo Nickal to succeed and has some eggs in the Bo Nickal basket. And so some fans are understandably, when that guy loses, are going to be like, haha, joke's on you. This one blew up in your face. The guy got fraud checked. The guy's a bust. And that is as premature as it is when we see a couple good wins and get excited and think about somebody as the next GOAT. It's a part of the learning process. He could go up from here. He could continue to go down from here. Like that. I wrote a story about this at Uncrowned today, kind of talking to a few guys who had been through it. That part is kind of up to him, like what he does with this one, what he tells himself about it. We've heard this from a lot of fighters where the turning point in moments like this for you as a fighter is, can you be honest with yourself about what happened out there and why it happened? Can you tell yourself, like, here's where I fucked up. Here's where I need to get better. Here's the areas of improvement I really need to focus on before I go out there again. Or do you make excuses? And do you not fix those areas? Because I tell you what, anybody else who's going to be asked to fight Bo Nickal is going to look at that fight and be like, all right, here are some vulnerabilities I see. If you could turn it around on him, hit him in the belly a few times, not let him do his stuff, he's going to fold up. And you got to go out there and show people that that's not true.
Well, here's what he said on Ariel Helwani today. He said, "This is an opportunity for me to bounce back and to just double down and make the story even greater and better," right? This is the fun part of it, getting through that adversity and meeting the challenges head on. Now, I could argue it would have been funner if he'd won, but
I mean, that is a real wrestler guy kind of thing to say, isn't it?
It absolutely is. But the fact is, aside from some very notable exceptions, it seems like every blue chip prospect has this happen to them, right? Or they're more often than not, you get a little bit out over it ahead of your skis in terms of the matchmaking, and somebody beats you. And most of those people regroup and they come back and they're just fine. So,
well, I mean, but that's the thing is, like, we've seen the blue chip ones, especially, or like the ones that the UFC is just excited about and tried to kind of help along. And then they got out there and finally got up against somebody who was too much for them in one way or another. And some of them don't bounce back. some of them just kind of continue along at that level and they don't really grow and get better from there. I think Bo Nickal will, just because you don't come through all that sort of that level of wrestling and not have that in you. I think if they were just going to make you quit or grind you down to where you didn't believe in yourself anymore, it would have happened by now. So, I do think that he will come back from that. It'll be interesting to see, though, what the UFC does decide to do with him next, like how you matchmake this guy going forward.
Well, if he needs any extra motivation, here's one from our guy, David E. Lauderay, who writes in to say, subject line, Bo Nickal, more like Bo Penny, ha, wink, finger guns.
David E. Lauderay still in his heel era, I see.
Thanks for that, Dave. Then we got 2 questions about this fight. Matt Webb wrote in to say Daniel Rodriguez needs more tattoos. And the Jesse White Deer writes in to say, bless up, Kings. Gentlemen, I simply ask as a fan of rap and hip-hop music, what was your take on Daniel Rodriguez's walkout song? Is D-Rod our John Cena? Good talent while being an okay rapper? Oh, and his knockout of the Ponzi scheme wasn't too bad either. Best wishes and warm regards, your pal from Oklahoma, the Jesse White Deer. What happened in this fight was that Santiago Ponzinibbio failed the what the fuck test. He gets knocked down, knocked out, gets up. He's trying to do the, what? That was an early stoppage thing. Instead, he stumbles drunkenly across the cage and then goes to the fence to try to make his case to Hunter Campbell, who is sitting there at cage side just looking at him like, you're fucked up, dude.
Time to go home.
Yeah, you are fucked up.
Give me your keys.
You're cut off, was how he was looking at him.
Can I say, I don't love that we're calling him the Ponzi scheme. That feels unkind. I get it with his name and everything, but you call somebody a Ponzi scheme, you're calling him a fraud, right? Like,
is it worse than Flat-Nosed Jackie?
Yeah, it's way worse. Flat-Nosed Jackie describes something that is happening. For one thing, it describes inarguable physical reality. And it's fun. It kind of rolls off the tongue a little way. It feels like, all right, that if we were all in a room together with the guys on this fight card and I said Flat-Nosed Jackie is in here, you'd be able to look around and know who I'm talking about. You'd be able to figure out, even if you'd never seen him before, who Flat-Nosed Jackie is. Like I said, there's a character to it. Ponzi scheme just sounds like we are going with the beginning of the guy's name and then thinking about the only other time that we've ever seen that and attaching them to that. And it's like, yeah, but the Ponzi scheme is like it's like a financial fraud that is perpetrated upon people. Lose their entire life savings and shit in a Ponzi scheme. It has scheme in the name. It just feels unkind.
You feel bad for Santiago Ponzinibbio.
I don't feel like he deserves that.
Point of fact, he does have 2 other fairly awesome nicknames. Right? Remember, his original nickname was Gentaboa, which means basically the nice guy.
Good guy.
Yeah, which is pretty awesome. His other nickname is the Argentine Dagger.
Those do seem to be like a little bit at odds with each other, but I like Gentaboa. I do too. Nice guy.
I do too. He still got his bell rung though.
Yeah, he did.
By Daniel Rodriguez. I'll be honest with you. I did not see or pay attention to Daniel Rodriguez's walkout where maybe he played a song that he wrote, produced, and rapped.
Can you do that?
I mean, Tyron Woodley did it, right? And then later revealed that the song he wrote was about Dana White. I'll beat your ass. Remember that one?
Did I ever tell you about this? This is an aside. This is for people who enjoy asides. There's one coming. If you're not an aside person, you're going to want to skip. Once when I was at the beach in San Diego and I was walking by on this like a little rocky out like on the Sunset Cliffs area in San Diego, I walked by this guy who's playing rap music from a speaker, like a little portable CD player that he had with him. And he made eye contact with me. And in the moment, just in the split second, hearing the rap, looking at the guy's face, something in my brain just knew that's him. He's rapping on this, especially because it didn't sound super professional. It didn't sound like, it's not Lil Wayne on there. You could tell, like, it wasn't like slickly produced or anything. It wasn't bad, but something in my brain just knew that's him. he is playing his own rap song right now. He made eye contact with me, gave me a little head nod, and he said, "Do you like it?" And I was just like, "Yeah, man." And then he was like, "I'm selling them. They're right here." And I was just like, "God damn it."
Did you buy one?
No, I did not buy one, but I was like, it's a good gimmick because he got you out of politeness to say you liked it. And then what, you don't want to buy it? Were you lying just now when you said that you liked it? If you liked it, why wouldn't you want to buy the CD from this stranger in the year 2024, as I believe it was at the time? Still out here selling CDs on the street, essentially.
Man, this was last year?
Last year.
Wow, he's got to be offering a free download with those CDs, at least.
If you had heard the level of production on the rap, you would not think that the download is where this guy's headed.
I, for one, wish you would have bought it. I would have liked to hear it with my own ears.
It is just something about like where if we see you and we hear you rapping at the same time, I don't know. There's a little bit of a disconnect. I don't like it.
The Mission District Crow wrote in to say, what to do with Miesha Tate? She doesn't seem to want to retire again. The UFC has relegated her to prelims and now putting over lower card talent. Announcers constantly reference her heart, read her willingness to take horrendous beatings, which she's into obliging, and it's a struggle to be competitive anymore. Tell me a path for her so I don't feel so sad about another OG falling off. I mean, I don't know that the path is in the octagon for Miesha Tate. I think the path might be elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, she's 38, right? Like that. You'll look at the record. There's an awful lot of pink on the Wikipedia page going back to, the stuff that led up to her first retirement. And what realistically do you think is still waiting in this game for you? Is it just about fighting out a contract at this point so that you're a free agent and could entertain other interesting offers that might hypothetically in the future come your way? Because you're right, like they kind of told you what they thought of you here. You got a fight coming up and they say, all right, we'll put you on the UFC fight night in Des Moines and not even on the main card. We're putting you on the prelims. And then you go out there and lose a decision on those prelims. Like that is not them saying that they see a bright future in the Miesha Tate business.
Didn't she say when she came out of retirement, didn't she say something to the effect of, I wanted to see what I have left? Like, I don't know that I would have been able to live with myself if I didn't come back. At this point, I feel like we found out.
Yeah.
I just feel like we found out, man.
We have turned that piggy bank upside down and slapped it until all the last coins fell out.
Remember when I won my bet on Yana Santos with my thorough scouting of her game?
I remember when it was only after you made the bet that you realized it was actually Yana Kunitskaya, and she just has a different last name now.
Yep.
Well, congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks. Yes, that's what I was waiting for. Thank you. Next question from Dangerous Danny. He writes, John Jones has one space left on the wall of victory he built in his basement.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up. So glad.
His most recent Very John Jones Instagram post vows that the story is still being written. Is he just bullshitting us?
Okay, did you look at this on his Instagram page?
I saw the wall of victory, yes, if that's what you're asking me. He thanked the two guys who came over to his house and helped him do it, even though they stayed up till after midnight.
Can you imagine what that was like? Because I feel like I can. I feel like I can imagine what it was like when John Bones gets to come over there at his house to help him with the wall of victory. And it's like your friend who asked you to help him move. You get over there first thing Saturday morning. He hasn't done a single fucking thing to prepare.
Yeah.
He hadn't put anything in boxes. He didn't have it. There's like laundry on the floor still. And you're just like, oh, it's like that. It's that kind of a move. I thought we were just going to help you show up, move some furniture into a truck, then take it back out again at the new place. You're wanting us to move you, is what you're saying. I bet it was the same kind of thing. Two things though about this room, the wall of victory or whatever. For one thing, the room seems to have nothing else in it.
Yeah. No, we took everything out, or there was nothing in to start with, in order to have more access to the wall of victory, I think.
Well, it's like he has this like picture where it's like we got little like step ladders and everything. It's like we're hanging posters, my man. We're not this isn't like knocking down walls and, putting in new flooring kind of shit. We're hanging fucking posters. It's not. I get you want them all to be level and everything, and that can be tricky when there's this many of them. Sure. But it doesn't need to be a huge home renovation project to hang posters. Nothing else in the room. Not a single bit of furniture else in the room. But when I'm looking at what we got here, because we got all the posters, all the events John Jones has fought in his UFC career. I assume we don't have the one that John Jones and Greg Jackson killed. We don't. We left that one off, I guess. And he's like, there's still one more spot, but there's clearly an open space under Jones versus Cyril Gahn. But he also says, I haven't framed and hung the Stipe one yet, obviously. So that's where that one should go. It looks to me like there is not one more space for John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. It looks to me like the way he's arranged this, once you put the Stipe one up there, it looks like it's going to be kind of done, man. Like, looks like there won't be any other space. It looks like you kind of don't intend to do that fight. Just looking at the wall of victory, or at least maybe you don't expect to win. So this one wouldn't go on the wall of victory. When I looked at it and I saw like his description and everything, and I was just like, and he's like, there's still one more space left. And I was like, yeah, but that's for the thing you just said was still yet to be added. Am I going fucking crazy? Because it doesn't seem like there will be space on the wall of victory.
Well, if he puts up the Stipe poster and then he defeats Tom Aspinall and is going to put up another poster, I feel bad for Javier and his guy Lyric over at New Mexico Fine Arts, because they're going to have to come back again.
There's not a space.
That's the thing. Javier and Lyric are going to have to go in there and make a space. They're going to have to redesign the whole wall of victory.
They'll be there till fucking 4 o'clock in the morning.
All right. Last question this week comes to us from Darkwing Duck, who writes, Eddie Hall put a beat down on Ben's beautiful boy, Mariusz Pudzianowski, and now is talking idly about fighting Francis Ngannou. Hall seems to have more of a here for a good time vibe than a here for a long time vibe. How much fun can we have with this guy whilst we've got him?
Okay. I'm
A
getting
fair amount of fun, I think.
Where this question came from with the whilst. That'll tell you something.
We can have a fair amount of fun with Eddie. And you know what? Eddie Hall seems down for fun.
He does, and he seems at least semi-realistic.
Yeah, he's like, Francis Ngannou, that guy would murder me. I'd be scared shitless. He'd outclass me in every possible way. How much would you pay me?
Yeah, I can appreciate a guy with that perspective. Here's the thing. When I was working on this story last night about how people have dealt with their first career loss, all that kind of stuff, I was talking to the big homie, Ben Rothwell. Always good to talk to the big homie. He's over there as the BKFC heavyweight champion.
Terrifying.
He was like, how about me and Eddie Hall? And I was like, now that seems like a more realistic possibility. And like Eddie Hall kind of already has a reputation for like, yeah, he'll do some fight sports shit, but like weird shit, not real shit.
Yeah.
At least a little bit weird shit. He fought 2 guys at once. He's been in an arm wrestling competition. He boxed the mountain. He goes out there and fights, an aged version of Mariusz Pudzianowski. Like, you could see him doing that kind of shit. And I was just like, as soon as Ben Rothwell said it, he was like, I've talked to him before. Like, he seems like a cool guy. Like, maybe we could do something. And I was just like, that you could kind of see bare knuckle getting into that, couldn't you?
If I was Ben Rothwell, I'd be calling Dave Feldman right now. Be like, Dave, let's get something on the books. Man, I know we've said this before, and Ben Rothwell is a nice, smart, cool guy, but he seems like he was waiting around his entire fighting career for bare knuckle to come along.
Yeah.
Because they let him go out there weighing 280 pounds, full torso of chest hair, bare-fisted, hands wrapped up like he's got a couple of casts on there. And it's just fucking terrifying, man.
It is terrifying, especially because he's one of the few people, it seems like, who right away figured out a style for bare knuckle. That he wasn't just trying to go out there and be like, hey, I've done some boxing before. I could do it. I'm just doing it without the gloves. Like, he seemed like he actually put some thought into it and developed a approach that works for the realities of bare knuckle and is catching people with these punches where it's just like the biggest risk to him physically is that your tooth might get embedded in his fist when he punches you. That is the greatest threat he faces out there.
Yeah.
So they do need to come up with some shit for him to do. They need to come up with some opponents that are going to be actually interesting for him. There's so many bar bouncers out there in America that you can get that to throw in there against Ben Rothwell, who's got to be making pretty good money in BKFC at this point, for it to be worth it for them to put on a fight. Make Eddie Hall an offer. It means shit. You're gonna tell me if they told you BKFC is doing Ben Rothwell versus Eddie Hall? I'll tell you that the Eddie Hall Pudzianowski live blog that we did for Uncrowned got a surprising amount of interest. If you did a BKFC fight with Eddie Hall, I think he brings you a lot of eyeballs to that. And I think there's a lot of fight fans out there who might right now think themselves above it all, who would be like, no, I will not sully myself by watching this stream of a BKFC event. But if you put on Ben Rothwell versus Eddie Hall, where they'd be like, all right, I gotta see this. I gotta see what the hell happens here.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I love the idea of that fight. Soon as you said Ben Rothwell said that out loud, I thought it was like, that's the one. Love it for Ben Rothwell. Don't love it as much for Eddie Hall.
Yeah.
Although I guess we would probably find out how hard and how many times Eddie Hall could get punched in his face and remain standing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what Eddie Hall says about fighting Francis Ngannou? There's always a chance. All right, that's going to do it for listener mail this week. If you have a question, comment, or concern that you want to air to the podcast in future weeks, you know how to do it. Go to the website, co-mainevent.com. Click the link in the top right-hand corner of the screen that says email the podcast. That'll get you in touch with us right now. Davison Figueredo and Cory Sandhagen put on a little bit of a scrap over there in Des Moines. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. We'll talk about that after this. Well, Ben, if I can say anything about this UFC on ESPN main event from Des Moines, it's probably that Cory Sandhagen is good.
He is good. And
maybe you forget that sometimes, especially coming off the loss to Umar Nurmagomedov in August. When you think, what does a tough, scary-ass MMA fighter look like? I don't know that Cory Sandhagen is the guy you think of, but he's good. He's really good. And he went out there and pretty much put a whooping on Davison Figueredo leading up to the knee injury. Got on the mic, says he wants a title shot. If that's where we're at bantamweight, I don't necessarily know that I would pick him in a fight against either Merab or Sean O'Malley, but if that's what was happening, I also wouldn't argue with it.
Yeah, right now, looking at the rankings, he's sitting there at number 4. You know, ahead of him, you got Umar, you got Peter Yan, you got Sean O'Malley, a bunch of guys who have all lost to Merab. Cory Sandhagen seems like when you hear him talk about it, you're like, all right, some people try to pretend that they don't really know what's going on with the rankings, with like where everybody else is. Like they're not really thinking about it that much. They're just in the gym beating ass and then getting ready for the next opportunity they have to beat somebody up for money. Cory Sandhagen makes it clear that he has put a lot of thought into this, which I kind of appreciate because A, it makes you seem like a nerd, but also it feels honest, like you have really thought it through and thought it through from like a self-serving kind of way. There's some quotes from him where he was on Ariel's show, I believe yesterday, and he was saying how basically he doesn't want to try to get a title shot as a backup fighter because it's just sort of like you got to wait around and prepare as if you're going to fight. You don't know if you'll actually fight, but then you got to be ready to fight either guy like on, you know, a few hours notice basically, and that it's a bad deal. But he's trying to kind of like lay out his case I think I've definitely done everything that I needed to do to put myself in the best situation. But I do think a lot of people are calling for that fight. I think if O'Malley wins, a lot of fans are going to be asking for me and O'Malley. So that will be something I'm certainly anticipating. I think when it comes down to it, probably after this one, logistically, I'm the most deserving. But also, I think on paper, what's going to do better for sales and what's going to get more viewership, me and O'Malley and me and Merab is going to do way better than the only other guy in the conversation, who is Jan. Jan already lost to O'Malley and he already lost to Merab. I'm coming off a win a month before the title shot. I don't really see how you can't choose me. And he also points out at some point, like, hey, I went out there and I finished Davis and Figueredo. Jan went 5 rounds with them, looked good, but he went the distance, couldn't put him away. And so basically trying to like hold himself up with this comparison and a very thought through, rationalized way of looking at it. And I can't really disagree with him.
Yeah.
And I do think, like, I mean, it's hard for me to imagine the situation where Sean O'Malley goes out there and beats Merab in the rematch. I was asking myself, like, is Cory Sandhagen right that they would look to move on and match Sean O'Malley up with somebody new rather than be like trilogy? Because in the UFC's mind, would they be like, Sean O'Malley is better for business. If we do the trilogy, we're just going to end up giving that belt back to Merab. Should you move Sean O'Malley on to something else if you can?
Well, he has to win for starters, right? Or else you're not doing
that is the hard part.
Yeah. I mean, you got to do a trilogy, right? If that's your choice. If your choice is Sean O'Malley versus Cory Sandhagen or Sean O'Malley in a trilogy with Merab, don't you got to take the Merab fight if you're the UFC?
I mean, unless you think, hey, we could make some money with Sean O'Malley versus, like, if they're thinking, let's keep Sean O'Malley as the champ for just a little while longer because we think he's better for sales. And if you put him back in there with Merab, there it goes.
Yeah, that is true. I guess it has how much do you want to massage it is the question.
But he does have a good point that if you look at it, where at a certain point, if you can just hang around and be somebody who hasn't been beat by Merab yet, and you win in some other fights against some other people in the meantime, they're probably going to get around to you sooner or later.
The one thing that I thought was funny about this was the post-fight interview where in his first question, Michael Bisping says, it's a shame how it ended, was the end of his first question. And Cory Sandhagen said, nah, it's not a shame. If you get involved in a 50-50 situation and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get your knee popped.
Yeah, I mean, that was a little bit of a fuck job to phrase it that way, right? To suggest like, hey, we were having ourselves a good fight and the guy's knee just went out, and too bad we were robbed of a chance to see the finish there. Because it's like, yeah, no, like that was a legit finish, and it's not like it was not going a clear way before that. But when he was explaining it afterwards at the press conference, where he was just sort of like, yeah, when I sit up hard on that, if you don't sit backwards, if you try to like maintain that top position, you're going to get your knee popped. So like, that was not a freak accident. That was me understanding the position better than he did. It's like, yeah, give him the credit for that.
Davis and Figueredo said that he had a jaw injury during camp that prevented him from training properly and a bacterial infection that required antibiotics during fight week. So
that's not great.
That doesn't sound great. Yeah, especially the whole needed to take antibiotics during fight week because of, quote, bacteria in my leg. The bacteria caused a fever. Where you press with a finger, there's a hole in my leg. So you know what that sounds like?
Sounds like some kind of staph.
Sounds like a staph infection is what happened.
He did have a strange strategy, it seemed, in this fight.
Just seemed like, yeah, it didn't seem like he was wasn't doing anything. It was like wasn't even really I mean, I don't want to say he wasn't there, but it kind of seemed like it didn't seem like he was well.
As the guy who had the underdog line on Davey Figs, just because why the hell not, when I saw how lopsided the line was, and I was watching this one on Saturday night and kind of being like, what are we doing, Dave? What are we doing, Figgy? This is not what I would advise us to do here. And like try to win this one via heel hook off the bottom. That's not what I thought that we should do. So I was a little vexed. Let me say this, though. I, had myself a nice Saturday.
Okay.
Chad.
Yeah, great.
it was it was a beautiful day here, as you no doubt recall. Beautiful sunny day, good day to get out, go did some stuff. They had the Brew Fest down
Mhm.
at Karis Park. Took in the Brew Fest. The Kentucky Derby was on Saturday. Watched that, made a nice meal, all that kind of stuff. Checked in on the fights and being like, okay, we're still like really early in the prelims on this. I'm gonna go do some other stuff, and I kind of forgot about it.
Mhm.
The day just kind of gets away from you. I was almost about to go to bed, and I was like, "Oh wait, have the fights ended?" Because I don't mind on a fight night checking back in on a Sunday morning, but I just like pulled up the fight card real quick just to be like, they must be over by now. Wonder, let's see like what some results were, and I realized they have not even started the co-main event yet. Chet is like 10:30 here in the One True time zone. So like we're talking like 12:30 a.m. Eastern time. If you live in New York City, you live somewhere on the East Coast, one of these major metropolises, they are asking you to stay up well past midnight before they will even start the co-main event on a UFC Fight Night event.
Yeah.
What the fuck business do they have doing that? That's wild, man.
Yeah.
You do not respect people's time.
Well, it's always been that way too, right?
That's insane. You can't do that. Why don't you want people to see and enjoy this product? Why are you making it so goddamn hard? And then you add to the top of it where it's like, oh yeah, I gotta log into ESPN Plus to watch it. Well, then that means I gotta like account another 10 minutes for when I log in, try to watch it, and they're like, hey, you should consider signing up for a plan. And I'm like, I am signed up, logged in, and everything. You can see it right here at the top of the screen. And then they're like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, okay, can I watch it? And they're like, you should consider signing up for a plan. And I'm just like, God damn you guys.
Did I tell you about the time when I had to call ESPN Plus and talk to the customer service representative because it turned out I had like 3 ESPN Plus accounts running simultaneously?
And I was surprised that they told you.
Yeah, well, they didn't. I mean, I noticed that I was getting charged a bunch of times, so I called them. So that's what happens when you log back in. Sometimes they think you are signing up for the plan. That's what they think. I will say this: ESPN Plus. It seems like they did just change it. So if you click on the search bar, like you can select that you want to search ESPN Plus, not that you want to get kicked back to see Brett Okamoto's latest story about Davis and Figueredo. You want to watch the fight.
Yeah.
So they got that going for them.
That only took them the entire lifetime of their deal with the UFC to figure out.
I heard that there was citywide protests in the streets in Philadelphia because they couldn't watch Cory Sandhagen versus Davis and Figueredo. Got too late. They're just
like, why isn't this fight on by now? People have things to do.
All right, that's going to do it this week for the Co-Main Event podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Please consider going over to the Patreon page and signing up for a subscription. We have lots of fun over there. Ben Folks and I will be there all week after this. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're there, brother, doing shows. That's what we do, shows all week. Got the live chat tomorrow for $3. You can sign up, go in there, ask us a question, and we are pretty much honor bound to answer it.
Yeah. Even if it gets weird and personal.
And they do.
Happens every week.
And they do. Patreon.com/co-main event. Use the code CME13. That's CME13 at checkout. Get 50% off a monthly or annual subscription, which is actually a screaming deal. If you're a patron, we'll talk to you tomorrow. If you're not, we'll see you right back here next week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We appreciate the support. As for right now, we are done. We are through. We are out. You know what Davison Figueredo's nickname is?
What's that?
Deuce de Guerra. You know what that means?
No.
God of War.
Okay. I did know that, actually.
Which, when you say it in Portuguese, sounds way cooler, doesn't it? Deuce de Guerra. You're like, oh, what does that sounds exotic? What does that mean? God of War.
Deuce? Are you saying Deus?
Deus? Am I did it? Deus. Yeah, there we go. Deus de Guerra. Sorry about that. So it just sounds cooler, doesn't it? I think it does.
Man, anytime you go to somebody's Wikipedia page and it's like either here's them from a fan Q&A or here's them in a fucking hostage photo. You just can't ever get a good photo on Wikipedia.
Oh, yeah. Davey Fig should do something about that.
Yeah.
he looks ill, and not ill in a good way.
And you see him so many times. The man got mad drip.
Yeah.
He got mad drip when they're doing him like this on Wikipedia. It ain't right, Chad.
Someone should let him know.